Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Wellness Wednesday. We are a group of friends and businesswomen who are passionate about helping those we care about. So please thank the person who invited you. They did so because they care about you. My name is Judy Meyer. I am a wife, a mother of 4 grown sons, and a grandmother, a very busy grandmother of 10 grandchildren. In the next 30 minutes, we hope to provide you with motivation and inspiration as we celebrate our doctors. Today, we are so honored to have Dr. Doug Odom as our guest. Dr. Odom is a lifelong Mississippian. He and his wife have 5 sons and 6 grandchildren. He enjoys active outdoor sports and has a passion for teaching and coaching. Dr. Odom attended the University of Southern Mississippi on a basketball academic scholarship and received a medical degree, from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He also completed his OB/GYN residency from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He delivered over 17,000 babies from the year of 1965 through 2002. That's a lot of babies. He served as associate clinical professor at UMMC for over 30 years and retired from his private OB/GYN practice in Jackson, Mississippi in 2015. Dr. Odom's mission is to eliminate preventable pregnancy complications using nutrition as the cornerstone. He is a beloved member of our healthy living community and is always so willing to answer questions and share his knowledge in a way that is easy for all of us to understand. I hope you have your pen and paper ready for all the great nuggets that will be shared with us today as our friend Jake Derr has a conversation with Dr. Odom. Jake?
Thanks, Judy. Well, Dr. Odom, it is such a great pleasure to have you here. I have some questions, but I know based on our conversations in the past, we just never know where things are going to go. So really thrilled that you could be here with us. So to kick us off, one of the questions that I have been asking of other doctors is, when you were in medical school, how much nutrition education did you get?
That's a big fat 0.
Yeah, we had a conversation with Dr. Jen Roberto last week, and it was pretty close to that too. And she says it's really not any different now. So when was it that you started to learn about the difference between nutrition and disease, or the lack of nutrition and disease, and the connection between nutrition and health?
This began my initiation into nutrition and how it impacts the human body occurred when my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer. This was in 1988. I was 44 years old. And I was out of town speaking in San Antonio, and my dad called me on a Sunday night and said, "I don't want to alarm you, but your mom's having surgery tomorrow. She didn't want me to call you, and she didn't want you to worry, but we're not sure what's going on, but she's having surgery tomorrow morning." So this message was received at about 8 or 9 o'clock. It's a 10-hour drive back to where I grew up, my hometown. So immediately when I hung up, I told my friends and the people that I was talking for that I would not be available. So I went through the night fast as my car would drive, and I got there before they started the surgery. She had far advanced colon cancer. The doctor described it, it was everywhere. It was all over the abdominal cavity. It was in her liver, it was in her lungs. And they didn't have the capability then to determine whether it was in her brain or not, but it was, she had far advanced colon cancer. So I merely asked the doctor, who I knew from medical school, and I knew he was far more holistic than most other doctors. And I said, well, what do I need to do? I'm 44, I eat fairly healthy, I'm an exercise nut. I love being busy and active. And so what do I need to do so that I lower my risk, or I prevent me from getting colon cancer? And he said, well, you can exercise all you want, but that probably is not going to help you. He said, you really need to change your diet. And I said, change my diet. I think it's pretty good. And he said, well, make it better. He also said, I'll tell you 5 things that I would encourage you to do. One is to drink more water. Well, that was the second thing. The first thing he said, even though you're only 44, go get a colonoscopy this week. So I did. I've had 7. They've all been normal. But that was the first thing. That's for early detection, as you probably know, or maybe even prevention if you can find polyps and remove them before they become cancerous. The second thing he said was drink more water. The third thing he said, eat more high fiber food. The fourth thing he said was consume more the fourth thing he said was give up red meat or cut way back. And the fifth thing he said was to consume more antioxidants. He didn't say take antioxidants or take vitamins. He said consume antioxidants. So again, he was way ahead of his time. I really appreciated his knowledge and his value for my mom's treatment and for giving her the best advice. So that began my antioxidants, and I'm thinking, what are antioxidants? I remembered that term, but I really didn't know what they were. So I'll give you a definition, everybody here, so that you know what antioxidants are. But I didn't know. I just knew they were good for me. I thought I remembered that the body made them. The body has a capability of making our own antioxidants, but we get most of them obviously from the food that we eat. And if there's anybody on here who is not in our cult or
Our community,
yes, then but for those of you that are, it's literally everything that Juice Plus makes. It's everything that they put together for us. But so when he's telling me about antioxidants, I'm beginning in my head there to decide that I've got to learn as much as I can and try to catch up with where this man is. And so when you hear the word antioxidant, almost always you hear it paired with free radicals. So our body's producing these free radicals. They're called oxygen free radicals. We just shorten it to free radicals. And we're all producing these every day. The more I exercise, the more I produce. So that's the reason why elite athletes have a shorter lifespan than an average couch potato. That's really sad to say, but it's because they don't appreciate the elite athlete doesn't appreciate the power of eating healthy and why we have to, because they're producing so many of these oxygen compounds that are literally producing chronic inflammation, also known as oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is literally more free radicals than the body can handle. And so the doctor's advice of more antioxidants consumption and limiting, he didn't say processed food because at that point that wasn't such a big deal, but it is today, limiting sugar and processed food and animal source foods. But in doing so, you really enhance and increase the power of these antioxidants, of how they can neutralize these damaging compounds that are literally unbalanced. And that's what makes them unhealthy. And that's why we need to balance them. So the definition of a free radical is a oxygen compound missing an electron. Oxygen has a valence of 2. There should be 2 electrons in the outer orbit. And unfortunately, when there's only 1, well, then it's searching for that other electron. And so it goes all over looking for it. And if it doesn't find it, it literally, whatever it touches, it has a potential for injury and damage. So if that free radical is associated with our DNA, it's how we literally develop the changes in our DNA that progress to cancer. If that if that free radical attacks the brain neurons, well, then over time you develop amyloid plaques, and that's how we develop Alzheimer's disease. If that free radical is in the joint tissues and it attacks the synovial membrane, well, then that's how we develop arthritis. So the idea is too many free radicals, too much chronic inflammation is literally the foundation or the cornerstone for what causes chronic disease. And so if we can reduce this free radical damage, this oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, well, then we markedly reduce the likelihood of developing any of these chronic diseases. And so all of that made sense for me when I was delivering babies, and I'm thinking, well, you know, if this works on the human body, this obviously works on the mother and even the developing embryo and fetus and baby. So if we can reduce the damage that's occurring from these unbalanced free radicals, well, then we can certainly reduce complications. And so that's, I mean, anyway, that's not what you asked me, but that's where I started.
No, this is wonderful, because I jotted down a few questions to just get us rolling. But I know that in past conversations with you that it doesn't matter what's going to come out of your mouth. It's going to be an education. So I hope all of you are taking notes. I'm not taking notes, but I'm certainly going to go back and take notes from what we're learning here today. So when you learned about this, you said that you took it into your practice. So how did you start talking about these kinds of things with the women who were coming into your practice?
I did. So for 10 years, I talked to them and encouraged them to eat more plant food. And I didn't have a specific diet. I hate that word diet. Diet literally means everything that goes in our mouth. So you can have a good diet or a bad one. But I did talk about what they could do to enhance their pregnancy and certainly enhance the health of their unborn yet baby. So
and did you have women that readily complied with that then?
No, that was the problem. I'm in Mississippi, Jay, come on. So I would tell them it would go in this ear and out this ear. And literally, I remember one time talking to a pregnant mother just before our morning clinic ended. And so I'm preaching to her about all the benefits of plant food, antioxidants, fiber intake, etc. And she's sitting there and she's nodding her head, and I'm assuming she's getting it. And then when I finished with her, she was my last patient. I had to go across town to another hospital where I had a patient labor. And I remember seeing her get in her car. And so I followed. I mean, I didn't follow her, but I got behind her, and I saw when she pulled off into I won't mention it, but a fast food establishment. I know where she was going, and I know that's what she was going to eat for her lunch. So it didn't really make as much impact. That it was a real issue trying to get patients to understand how important this is. And it's not just for for her, or even for her baby, but for her baby's baby and the offspring for generations to come. We know now that the food that we eat during a pregnancy affects up to 5 or 6 generations. That's amazing. So, if you like, I'll talk in a little bit about
Yeah, you talk about whatever you want to talk about, Dr. Odom.
one of our studies was done in Australia at Newcastle, and it was published in the early 2000s, and it was on gene expression and on evaluating inflammatory genes and food being able to turn good genes on and bad ones off. And so that's been extrapolated now, not by the Juice Plus people, but by our company, but by other studies that show that the food that the mother eats affects the epigenes, or the turning on or turning off, or it's called upregulating or downregulating genes. We can't change our genes, we can't change our DNA, but we can affect whether we turn them on or off, whether that's called expression, genetic expression, whether we express them or not. And we didn't realize this when I was in school or even when I was in training, but we know it today. The food that we eat absolutely affects or can affect genetic expression. And these were inflammatory genes. So over 1,100 that they were able with Juice Plus. I've forgotten the number of participants, but in a relatively short period of time, a few months maybe, they were able to determine that there were over 1,100 genes that were turned on or upregulated, and almost 500 of the negative genes or the unhealthy genes that they were able to turn off.
That is just amazing. And it's simply
Amazing
fruits
to
and
me.
vegetables, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, we really try to complicate this human body, and it is complicated. I'm really simplifying an awful lot of this, but it really boils down to lifestyle. We get to decide every single day so many decisions that can affect not just our health today, tomorrow, next week, even next year, but down the road. And I mean, literally 20, 30 years from now. And it's the consistent activity that we're doing. Somebody might say today, you know, I'm going to become a vegan. I'm really going to limit my animal source foods. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to get out of this bad relationship. I'm going to quit this job where I hate it and I don't like my boss and I'm unhappy. All of these things over a lifetime literally affect your genetic expression, affects your human physiology. And so often it's in a negative way, and it doesn't have to be. These are choices.
Mhm.
Back in 1998, the very first PowerPoint I put together, the title of it was Challenges, Choices, and Consequences. And so that's literally so true today still, that we're all challenged with what we can do and how consistent we can be. Choices, we get to every time we put anything on the end of our fork, it affects us. And so we all should be saying to ourselves, well, what can I do that's going to allow me to minimize negative consequences?
Mhm. You know, one of the things that one of the very first times I ever heard you speak, it was at a presentation that you put together. It was called Vine Ripened Babies, and it was just loaded with such wonderful information. And I believe that you talked about in that a study that you did within your own practice. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because
Sure.
I find this study just fascinating.
Well, it was interesting, and that study really originated out of a conversation. I had 4 partners in 1998 when I started with Juice Plus, And the nurses were in our break room, and one of them asked my nurse, why is it that it seems that your patients never seem to get toxemia of pregnancy? And my nurse, very loyal to me, she'd been with me for 30 years at that point. She said, it's because we practice better medicine. And those simple words that she stated, we didn't realize how beneficial what we were recommending to our patients, how much it would benefit them. And we didn't really realize the extent, but we know it today. And I think that's, and anyway, that's where it started right there. So I asked her to help me to remember who I had talked to about Juice Plus that was pregnant. So she helped me go back, go through charts and records. And so I did a retrospective observational study. It was not a gold standard study. It's not what Juice Plus does today, but it did lead to a study at our university where I taught medical students for 30 years. So, but the bottom line there is that if I could get the patient to see the value of spending, and we only had fruits and vegetables then, man, if we'd have had the berry blend along with the omegas, I don't know that we could have gotten results any better than what we got. But my mission was to make sure that they were consistent, that they didn't miss a day. I even had them bring in their pill boxes so I could count them. And literally, I wrote it on the chart, how many were in there and whether they were consistent or not. But that was my challenge, was to have them do that, just see the value of being consistent.
Wow, that's really something. You know, I've got that study. I'm going to pull that screen up real quick so that everybody here can see what that looks like. And if you want to, you know, talk a little bit about it, you're so welcome to. But these are the things that I just find this is fascinating. I'll just be quiet, Dr. Odom, and let you.
Well, thank you, Jake, for putting this together in such a beautiful way, much better than what I did when I was trying to put a PowerPoint together. I wish I had you available to help me with those visuals at that point. But here's what we did find. We didn't have one single mother that took Juice Plus that delivered prematurely, and that's before 37 weeks. We didn't have one single incidence of preeclampsia in 242 patients. And this is if they were consistent. I'll stop right there and just say very briefly that the birth weight was 0.5 pound more in the Juice Plus group. The average length of stay intrauterine was 8 days longer. We had no instance of the most common issue with premature births, and that is respiratory distress syndrome, or babies having to stay in the NICU nursery. So why respiratory distress syndrome? It's a condition where the lungs don't mature until the very end of the gestation. The liver doesn't mature until the very end of the gestation, and neither does the brain. So those are three organs that you really want to make sure that you have maturity when you deliver. But I had a point there. Hang on one second. What else was I going to tell you real quickly? Oh, yes. When I was discharging all of my patients in those 4 years, I was in the last year of accumulating information, and I'm sitting on a patient's bed, literally, discharging her and telling her what to do when she got home, and etc. And the husband's right there, and the family, and they're all ready to go. And I remember sitting in this patient's room and telling her that, you know, you're my first patient that I've had now in 3.5 years that's developed toxemia or that delivered before 37 weeks while taking Juice Plus. So I'm sad to tell you that it wasn't able to help you right up to the very end, but I appreciate you being involved in this and seeing value and trusting me that this is going to be good for you. And I noticed that she couldn't look at me when I'm telling her this. She's looking at her husband, and she finally broke down and almost started crying. She said, "Well, I hate to tell you, but I stopped taking those pills 6 weeks ago." And I said, "Well, I appreciate your honesty. I'm sorry you did." She said, "Don't worry. If I get pregnant again, I'll take them all the way through." And so 3 weeks later, I'm telling the second patient in my practice that delivered early and that had toxemia as well. And she told me the same thing. She stopped, and one stopped at 30 weeks and one stopped at 32 weeks. So what that told me was, though, that there's continued antioxidants that are circulating in the bloodstream, even though we stop them on one day, and even though we preach and beg patients to be consistent. We don't want to get them out of the habit. We want to keep them in that habit of the consistent activity. So, so it allowed them to carry the baby another 3 or 4 weeks before finally there was enough free radical damage or whatever that started them in labor and then caused the blood pressure to go up. So it's not the end of the world if you forget one day, but if you remember it the next day, you can try to catch up if you can. You can double or triple your Juice Plus. This is not a medicine. You're not going to overdose. You're not getting too much of any one thing, but surely get back in the habit of being consistent.
And we certainly don't want anybody to believe that just because they were to consume Juice Plus that they're gonna forego any kind of potential problems, because we know that that's not true. That can still be, there still can be challenges, but we know that when we are consuming it, we're just giving our bodies so much more of a chance, of a fighting chance. So I wish I would have known about this. I wish I would have had you as my OB-GYN. I've never been to Mississippi, but gosh, if I'd have known that you would have been my OB, I think I've been, really thought seriously about moving there to have my babies.
Well, I may start delivering again, Jake. I don't know what your plans are, but
I think I'm a little too old for that. Although we often tease our boys that we're going to start another family. My youngest will be 25 this year. I don't think so. Oh, goodness. Dr. Odom, is there anything else that you would leave us with? One final thought?
Well, I've got to talk about gut health because that's what's on everybody's mind today. And so how does that play into pregnancy, and how does it affect all other conditions in the human body? It's because everything really begins in the gut. It begins in the digestive system. It's where 85% of our immunity resides. It's where over 70% of our neurons, our nerve cells, are found. And we've learned so much in the last 2 decades or a decade and a half about the role that a healthy gut will lead to healthy overall human health or human vitality, energy. So and it's so simple to me because we know that that we have different groups of bacteria. And they fall into 2 groups: good ones and bad ones, or beneficial and non-beneficial. And they actually have names. The non-beneficial are called Firmicutes. And if we're eating the standard American diet, which consists of processed food, sugar, and animal source foods, if we eat that predominantly, we're going to predominantly have the bacteria that favor these Firmicutes, or that's going to be their predominant strain. And it's not that these are bad for us, but it's the balance. It's the balance of the bacteria. And every organism, every living organism that has an alimentary canal or that creates energy, that ingests food, has bacteria. And those, we're big scuba divers. We love the octopus and the squid. They have bacteria in them. The fish, all animals do. So bacteria have, I don't know whether I'm using the right word or not here, adapted or evolved into its place today. Bacteria were here scientifically before humans, and so they've become related to the human in a symbiotic relationship. They're in a warm, moist, dark place where they can propagate, where they can reproduce and thrive, and we're just giving them the food. We're just, whatever food we choose, we're feeding them. And if we choose plant-based food primarily, well, then we're going to have a bacterial balance that are favoring the beneficial bacteria. And that's what we want. When we have it the other way around, it's called leaky gut. That leads to all autoimmune diseases. It leads to disease and an early death and advanced rapid aging. So it's so simple. We just need to eat more plant food. We need to eat more fiber, and probiotic fiber is almost one word now. We just I just use those two words together because that's whatever's feeding the probiotics are your good bacteria. So prebiotics are anything that feed the good bacteria.
I learn something new from you every time I talk to you or every time I watch one of your presentations, and I just am so grateful. This is one of the reasons that we wanted to invite you on today, because this week, I think it's today or yesterday, was National Doctor Day, and we wanted to honor doctors that really pour into us and that we really respect and appreciate. And oh man, I just was so excited today to have you on that I was nerve-sided all day long. I was just a jumble of nerves, and you have just absolutely shown up for us, and I really, really appreciate this, Dr. Odom. So we're going to go ahead and close out. Judy, do you want to finish up? And then
Sure.
Dr. Odom, do you have time for a few questions afterwards? If
I do.
anybody...
I do.
Okay.
But before I start answering those, I want to tell you thank you for all that you do for all of us, Jake. You just pour into all of us as well. So thank you for that.
Well, it's my
Thank you
pleasure.
for being so generous with your talents.
Well, my pleasure.
Mine too.
Okay. Well, this has been an amazing call, and we just appreciate all of you being here with us today. And we hope you found value and inspiration, which I have no doubt that you did, for I know I did. But if you have any questions in regards to what you heard today, just reach out to the person who invited you. And also, if you know of someone who you feel would benefit from this call, there will be a recording. Excuse me. Last but not least, next week we will be doing this again, and our topic will be roadmap to reading labels. So we hope to see you then. We thank you so much for being here, and we just hope everyone has an awesome week.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself or type them in the chat, we'd be happy to, Dr. Odom, be happy to answer. We'll stay on for a few extra minutes. Or if there's anything that you'd like to share. I see a special person on the call that has just delivered two Juice Plus babies. Melanie Parker. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi. Yeah, we're all home and doing well. So
Congratulations, Melanie.
Thank you.
Oh, I know now. On the leaky gut, how do we know if we have leaky gut?
Great question. There is a way that you can send off a stool sample and they can diagnose that for you if you're not having symptoms like diarrhea, loose stools, chronic constipation, etc. If you don't have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, these are tips that maybe you have an issue. But you would typically know if you have normal bowel function, you probably do not have leaky gut.
Okay,
All right, so what is normal bowel function? Experts today, well, they used to say a bowel movement a day is normal. And then they said a bowel movement every 2 or 3 days is normal. Experts today are saying if you eat 3 meals a day, it's not uncommon, nor unusual, nor abnormal to have 3 bowel movements a day. So every time you eat, that should be stimulation for having a bowel function.
okay.
Okay, so if you're quote regular, and when they started with Juice Plus back in 1993, and they offered it to the company, the corporate staff, they gave it to them and just wanted their feedback. They were their test market, their test subjects, and that was the first thing that they all mentioned: regular bowel function. So they passed out not plaques, but buttons that said, "I'm a regular guy" or "I'm a regular gal." So they thought it was cute, and it was, but it's so much more than that. When we talk about having a bowel movement, we don't really think about it. At least I never considered it. But when you have a bowel movement, 60% by weight of what you're eliminating is bacteria. So it's amazing. And you're getting rid of those, and yet you still have bacteria by the trillions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a couple of questions here in the comments. One, Vicky asks, what does Dr. Odom recommend for babies who have difficulty with a bowel movement? Babies as in how old, Vicky? She's at work. I don't know if she can, maybe it's
Okay.
her granddaughter.
Well, I would say this about bowel function and about if people are worried about what's wrong with my child or what's wrong with me. I would I'm not on this call here to practice medicine. I would say if it's for your child, talk to your pediatrician and let them make sure that there's not some anatomical something that's going on. But for all of us that are not children, all of us that are adults, at least over 15, 18, if we haven't had bowel problems to this point, but we're just now developing them, this is what I've learned is that we can, our body is capable of healing itself. It's capable of correcting issues, of undoing things, of reversing diseases. And so, but for people that have not a bowel movement every day or that have constipation, I would encourage 2 things. The first is more fiber. The second is more water. If that doesn't work, well, then I would go see somebody, see a professional.
Thank you.
But we used to say fiber, just fiber, just fiber. And I had patients that did that and they didn't have the complement amount of water and they just got more and more constipated. So you have to add the water. The real beauty of, Jake, that was great to have that disclaimer about we're not saying do this and you won't have pregnancy complications. Do this and you won't develop Alzheimer's, or you won't develop breast cancer, what we're all concerned about. But when we're adding Juice Plus, it's not just the effect of what is in Juice Plus, but it's the fiber that's feeding the good bacteria. The good bacteria sending signals to the neurons saying, eat more of this healthy fiber-rich foods. And we all know that the longer that we're on Juice Plus, the more we start craving the green beans, the green salads, the healthy fare instead of the junk food. So, but what is it that's in these foods that we're eating that is so beneficial that we never stop to think about? Well, one is fiber and the other's water. So if we're really concerned about getting enough water, and that's the beverage of choice, and every time I go to any Juice Plus anything, everybody's got their water bottle. They're always drinking constantly, which we should. However, if we ate plant foods almost exclusively, you're getting your concurrent amount of water because most every food that we have that we can eat, real food, not processed or condensed or concentrated, but the real food is going to be full of water. Juice Plus, as you know, it's the water is extracted. That's why it's called concentrated whole food. So we have to add the water. We have to add water. And I've had patients say, well, I'm going to get me some of that FiberCon. I'm going to get me some of that Metamucil. I'm going to do that Metamucil challenge. All right, well, that is fiber, but it's artificial. It's made in a lab. It's made in a factory. It is not, or it's made in a plant. It's not made from plants. So, but if we eat real food, then it's going to have the water and the fiber. And more importantly than that, what are the components that are found in the fiber? What was the second thing that doctor told me to consume more of? Antioxidants. Well, antioxidants are found in plants, trapped in the fiber. So when we chew the food, it's called mastication. When we chew it up, break it down, we're releasing these antioxidants so we can absorb them. And what is it? What does it better than chewing? It's mechanical juicing. And it's more than juicing, it's pulverizing is what they do with our foods with Juice Plus. So the designer and founder of Juice Plus, Smokey Santillo, called these powders, these plant powders, pre-digested. All we had to do was get them in our stomach, small intestine, and then add water to have them be absorbed very, very readily into our circulation. So they were pre-digested. They didn't have to be worked on by the bacteria that really do the heavy lifting for breaking down food and helping us to absorb it, or the enzymes that our body has to create energy for the pancreas and the other organs to produce these enzymes. It's already almost ready to go directly in your circulation. So when we can break it down into that fine powdery constituents, then they go right into the circulation. So that's what we want, but don't forget your water.
Absolutely. Okay, one more question here. Meg says, I know someone who lost 3 babies in a row. The only thing the doctors told her were the babies stopped growing before the 3rd trimester. Any words of wisdom?
Yes, there are things that happen in a pregnancy that we can't explain. And I don't know, just from that brief introduction there, what happened. I did have patients come to me for infertility, though I really didn't have infertility training. But I did have patients, though, that came to me from another practice, or maybe even some of my partner's patients that just wanted a fresh approach. And I told them, I don't know if this is something that might benefit you, but it's minimal money compared to what it costs for in vitro or egg retrieval or all the different other things that can be done artificially to help one conceive. But obviously something was missing or there wasn't enough of something. So we don't know everything that's in Juice Plus. I can tell you, the company has measured and we can measure a lot of things, but you don't need a whole lot of any one thing. They're called trace minerals for a reason. And that's what Juice Plus is. It's a little bit of virtually everything that the body requires for optimal health. So and I know you've all heard that Juice Plus bridges the gap. Well, I'll tell you, but I wouldn't do this in front of a large crowd. But I used to say that yes, this will augment or this will enhance your diet. This will help you. Juice Plus will help you get what you really need for your foundational health. But we've always relied on our diet first and Juice Plus second, just like we did your diet first and then vitamins before we knew about Juice Plus. But today I would say let Juice Plus be your fundamental nutritional intake, and then add on top of that what you love that's healthy, especially in a raw form.
And when you said, I just wanted to clarify something, you said that we didn't really know what was in Juice Plus. We know the fruits and vegetables. We know all the.
We don't know everything that's in there. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
as far as like every nutrient, we don't know, because I've heard say that we know that science knows that there are 400 nutrients in an apple, but it's suspected that there are over 10,000 that they haven't even identified yet. So when you're looking at 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries in the essential capsules, think of the tens of thousands of nutrients that could potentially be there, that those are the things that you were referring to. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure,
So.
sure, great point. And I will say this, those nutrients that are in the apple, and I know you've seen the depiction, you've seen the visual, and I remember when I was creating my slideshow earlier years ago, the first number that I saw was 4,453 antioxidants, or I'm making that up.
Oh.
I don't remember exactly. And then I saw one later that said, no, maybe that was just in an apple. No, there are 10,000 antioxidants. And then they're estimated that there are 25,000. And then they were estimated that there were 100,000. Well, to be honest, we don't know the number. And most of these antioxidants don't have names. They are identified only by structure. So, and these structures like lutein, zeaxanthin, have you ever heard of those two? Okay, well, they're very active, and they go from one form to another. They lose a carbon, or they gain a methyl group, and then they become something else completely. So they're constantly changing, and it's really hard to know in any one split second what's where. So there's so much that we don't know about as far as being able to be 100% accurate.
Right.
But
Well,
we
and
know that they're good for us.
as we're
don't
talking of, sorry,
No, it's okay. You go ahead.
I was just thinking is as we're talking about this, it makes me think of a study that was done on vitamins many years ago. It was a very large study that they ended up stopping it because I think they had stopped it after like 8 years, because the people that were in the study in the vitamin group were actually developing the diseases that they had hoped would be shown that they would be preventing. But, as we're talking about this makes really a lot of sense to me, because in a vitamin, you get there's only 13 vitamins. And in a vitamin pill, you might get a few extra things in there, but you're not getting anywhere near what an apple has, or what a pear has, or a pineapple, or a grapefruit, or any of these things. And so it really makes sense why vitamins have been proven not to be good for us, and why we really do need to consume plant foods. And so then all the studies that have been done on our concentrated nutrition, there's now over 40 of them. It makes sense why all of those are so positive, and we're seeing such benefit from that. So thank you for connecting those dots for me today. I hope that you all also had some dots that were connected, or some blanks that were filled in. So anyway, well, Dr. Odom, we just again want to thank you so much for your time here today and sharing with us. You're always so willing to share, and we just love you. And we appreciate you
Thank
so
you.
very much. So I'm gonna stop the recordings now.